Floyd Mayweather just filed a $340 million lawsuit against Showtime, and 50 Cent wasted about 5 minutes before turning it into a roast. This is the kind of story that writes itself. One of boxing's biggest names, a guy who made hundreds of millions of dollars over his career, is now standing in front of a California court, claiming he got played, and his old friend turned enemy, Curtis Jackson, is watching from the sidelines with a bag of popcorn and absolutely zero sympathy.
That's tough, because support me and help me be the best man that I can be.
So the money's really gone?
Yeah, that's what you think. It's fight, get the money, spend the money, fight.
All that money?
And it took been 2 years.
So is it just his overhead is so high on a day-to-day, month-to-month? Like,
I don't even want to talk about it. Like with the lifestyle, that money is gone, trust me. Now it's like, call him, he'll be at your local host in a nightclub, because you need that action right now.
Let's set the scene. On February 3rd, Mayweather's legal team filed suit against Showtime Networks and the former president of Showtime Sports. The claim is serious. Floyd's attorneys say the network ran a fraud scheme that drained roughly $340 million that should have gone to him. His lawyer, Bobby Cimini, didn't hold back when he spoke to TMZ, saying Floyd generated hundreds of millions in revenue for the company, and now he's taking the fight to the courtroom, just like he always has in the ring. Dramatic? Sure. But the number alone makes it impossible to ignore. Showtime's parent company Paramount fired back fast. Their spokesperson called the claims baseless and said they lack legal or factual merit. They're not scared, at least not publicly. So you've got a massive legal war brewing between one of the most famous athletes on the planet and a media giant. That's already a story. But then 50 Cent logged onto Instagram, and suddenly it became something else entirely. Because here's the thing about 50. He doesn't care how big the moment is. He doesn't care if you're in court, in crisis, or on top of the world. If there's an opening, he's swinging. And with Floyd, there is always an opening.
Because Floyd, we've been friends since 2002. There was a point where I'm looking at things and I'm going, yo, we kind of got the wrong messaging point. Because we're saying we got all the money in the world, we're going to burn it, we're going to get it again. So what? When you say change it, he goes, nah, you do that, Fab. He said something to me one time, very simple. He said, what a prize fighter fight for? And I'm like, and he said, the prize. Don't nobody watch Floyd fight to see how amazing he is. They watch it for the opportunity to see him lose.
Right.
Because they don't like him.
The arena have just shown Floyd Mayweather, and they begin to boo immediately.
They don't like him because everything that he says is about money. There's nothing else. There's no values. There's no, like the people's champ, like Ali was standing for the same things.
Right.
The audience was standing for. He doesn't have any of that. It's just money.
I take 30 watches with me.
This beef goes back over a decade, and it is nowhere close to finished. To understand why 50's reaction hit the way it did, you have to go back to where this whole thing started. 50 Cent and Floyd Mayweather were actually close once. In the early 2000s, these two were running in the same circles.
Man, 50 Cent, you're on a raft.
on the raft.
In the middle of the ocean. You look in the ocean, you see two people. You can only pull up one. All right? You look in the ocean, you see Game, and you see Mayweather. Who do you pull up? And who do you leave in the ocean?
I pull Floyd up still.
I heard that.
Yeah, Biggie still is my bro. You know what I'm saying? It's just, he just did some crazy, just went crazy.
Both at the top of their respective games. Both flashy, both loud, and both convinced they were the biggest thing walking. For a while, it worked. They fed off each other's energy. Two guys who never backed down from anything, linked up like they were untouchable. Then 2012 happened. A financial dispute cracked the foundation. And what was left wasn't friendship anymore. The details of that falling out were murky at the time, but the result was crystal clear. Two of the most competitive, most petty, most publicly combative men in entertainment suddenly had each other in their crosshairs. And unlike most celebrity beefs that fizzle out after a few Instagram posts, this one had legs. Real legs.
Career can continue spending at such an extraordinary level.
When you got a 40-man entourage, You got other people, and you take everybody out, pay for everything, shopping, the mall, going out to eat, renting out an entire movie theater. Yeah, just to go watch a movie at whatever time he wanted. It was like the theater was closed when we got rolled up to the movie theater, and you know, you got the girls and all. Yeah, and you rent out a whole movie theater for 40, 50 plus people. I bet that bill can rack up, bro. I think you'd have to tell me, like, what is bro? He don't have $0. Floyd still has money, a lot. I just think that maybe the lifestyle and I don't know, maybe catching up. I mean, I don't know. I've been to a strip club, like, it pulls in money. He's got money coming in. I don't know if he still has was it the girls' lounge or something like that. But no, it was he gets money. I just don't know how much. But I don't pocket watch. But if he is going broke, then it makes sense why he is fighting. I've heard rumors. I've heard the rumors too.
He questioned his lifestyle, his finances, his image. But the sharpest jab 50 ever landed didn't come from any diss track. It came from a reading challenge. Back in 2014, 50 publicly dared Floyd to read a single page of a book out loud. Not a legal document, not a contract. A page from The Cat in the Hat or Harry Potter. And the stakes? If Floyd did it, 50 would donate $750,000 to a charity of Floyd's choosing. It was calculated, cold, and it landed like a punch to the jaw. Floyd never took him up on it. That moment planted a seed. And when the Showtime lawsuit dropped, 50 saw exactly how to water it. The morning after Floyd's legal team filed that lawsuit, 50 Cent went straight to Instagram and did what he does best. He didn't write a long essay. He didn't call a press conference. He just dropped a post that cut right to the bone. Oh no, don't cry now, champ, they beat you out of $320 million, you dumbass. I told you, let me read the contracts now, lace up. You gotta look good fighting, Mike. Then he twisted the knife a little further, adding that maybe Errol Spence or Bud Crawford could beat Floyd's tail for some big money too. Every single word was deliberate. The reading jab wasn't random, it was a callback, a direct reference to that 2014 challenge that Floyd never answered. 50 wasn't just mocking him for the lawsuit, he was saying, "I told you so," in the loudest, most public way possible. The message underneath all the jokes was pretty straightforward. You should have let me look at those contracts. You didn't listen. Now look at you. And people heard it. Bow. Wow jumped into the comment section almost immediately, dropping a skull emoji and nothing else. Sometimes that's all you need to say. Other fans piled on too, with one comment standing out above the rest. 50 will never let his ops get a pass. That line basically summed up the entire post in 9 words. What makes 50's trolling so effective is that it's never completely empty. There's always a point buried inside the joke. The reading challenge in 2014 wasn't just mean-spirited clowning, it was pointing at something real. And now, with a $340 million lawsuit sitting in a California courtroom, that same point is looking a lot sharper than it did 10 years ago. 50 knew exactly what he was doing. He always does. Now, let's talk about what Floyd is actually claiming, because the lawsuit itself is worth paying attention to beyond the drama surrounding it. According to Floyd's legal team, Showtime Networks and the former president of Showtime Sports didn't just shortchange him on a deal or two. The claim is that they ran an active fraud scheme, systematically siphoning money away from him over time. Floyd's attorney Bobby Samini framed it boldly, pointing out that his client was one of boxing's biggest pay-per-view draws and generated hundreds of millions in revenue for the network. The argument is simple. Floyd brought the audience. Floyd brought the money. And allegedly, Floyd didn't get what he was owed. The total figure being thrown around is staggering. $340 million. That's not a rounding error. That's not a miscommunication over a clause in a contract. If the allegations hold up, that's a deliberate, coordinated effort to take from someone who trusted the system around him. Paramount, which owns Showtime, came out swinging in the other direction. Their statement was short and sharp. Baseless claims, no legal or factual merit, and they plan to respond through the proper court process. They're not entertaining the lawsuit publicly. and they're not showing any signs of settling quietly. So, right now you've got two completely opposite stories. Floyd's camp says he was robbed in a boardroom. Showtime's camp says none of it is true. And somewhere in the middle is a California courtroom that's eventually going to have to sort it all out. What's interesting is that Floyd himself built his entire brand around being untouchable. 50-0 in the ring, the best ever by his own account. But the one place he's always seemed vulnerable is off the canvas, in the business world, in the fine print. And that's exactly the crack 50 Cent has been pressing on for years. And that crack gets a whole lot more interesting when you bring Rick Ross into the picture. Because this wasn't just a two-man show. Ross decided he had something to say. And when Rick Ross speaks on something involving 50 Cent, you already know it's not going to be calm or measured. These two have one of the longest-running, most publicly bitter feuds in hip-hop history. So, when Ross saw an opening to weigh in on the chaos surrounding 50 and Floyd, he took it. Ross has always positioned himself as someone who sees through the noise. He's talked about Floyd before, and he's never been shy about where his loyalties sit when it comes to 50 Cent. The two of them have been trading shots for years, through music, through social media, through interviews. There's genuine history there, and not the good kind. What makes Ross's response interesting is the timing. He didn't jump in immediately. He let the story breathe for a moment, let 50's post do its damage, and then he stepped in with his take. That kind of calculated entry is actually very Ross. He's not reactive in the way 50 is. Where 50 moves fast and loud, Ross tends to let things simmer before he adds fuel. The response itself kept the temperature rising on what was already a boiling situation. Because now, it wasn't just about Floyd and Showtime anymore. It wasn't just about 50 clowning on an old rival's legal troubles. Suddenly, there were multiple voices, multiple angles, and multiple layers of bad blood all colliding at the same time. This is exactly the kind of moment that hip-hop Twitter and Instagram live for. Old beefs intersecting with new headlines, and everybody picking a side before all the facts are even on the table. And picking sides is exactly what people started doing, almost immediately. The comments sections across Instagram and Twitter lit up within hours. Some people were firmly in 50's corner, laughing at every word of the post and agreeing that Floyd's legal trouble was a long time coming. Others thought 50 was being cold, kicking someone when they're already dealing with a serious situation. But very few people were neutral. That's the nature of both of these personalities. They don't inspire fence-sitting. What's worth stepping back and noticing is how this whole situation reflects something bigger about the way money moves in the entertainment and sports world. Floyd Mayweather didn't become a billionaire by accident. He was meticulous about his brand, his fights, his image. He called himself Money Mayweather for a reason. The idea that someone of his profile, with his resources and his team around him, could allegedly lose $340 million through a network deal is genuinely shocking to a lot of people. And that shock is part of why 50's joke lands so hard, because it touches on something that people in and around the industry already whisper about. That even the biggest names, the ones who seem completely in control, can get caught slipping when it comes to the business side. Talent and business sense don't always come packaged together. And the people who surround you matter just as much as the contracts themselves. 50 has talked about this openly for years. He's spoken about his own financial mistakes, his bankruptcy filing back in 2015, and what he learned coming out the other side. He didn't go through that quietly either. He turned it into content, into lessons, into ammunition. So, when he points the finger at Floyd now, there's a layer of personal experience behind the mockery that gives it a little more weight than just trolling for laughs. That personal experience is actually one of the most fascinating parts of this whole story, because 50 Cent is not exactly someone who has always had his financial house in perfect order. Back in 2015, 50 filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, listing somewhere between $10 million and $50 million in assets against liabilities of up to $50 million. It was a moment that his critics pounced on immediately. Here was a guy who rapped about wealth constantly, who built an entire persona around having more money than he knew what to do with, suddenly sitting in a bankruptcy courtroom. The internet had a field day. People questioned everything, from his business decisions to whether the lavish lifestyle was ever real to begin with. But 50 didn't collapse under the pressure. He navigated it, restructured, and came out the other side with his empire largely intact. The G-Unit brand survived. His television production deals survived. His investments survived. And maybe most importantly, his ability to control the narrative survived. He framed the bankruptcy not as a failure, but as a strategic move, a way to manage debt while protecting his core assets. So, when 50 stands on the internet and mocks Floyd for allegedly getting drained out of hundreds of millions by a network he trusted, there's something almost ironic about it. This is a man who has been through his own very public financial storm. He knows what it looks like when the money story starts falling apart. He's lived it. The difference, at least in 50's telling, is that he saw it coming, adapted, and stayed in control of the outcome. Whether that's completely accurate or not is a separate conversation. But the point he's making about Floyd is that the warning signs were there, and nobody was paying close enough attention to the paperwork. And in the music and sports business, that paperwork is everything. That lesson about paperwork has echoed through hip-hop for decades, and it never seems to fully sink in until someone is sitting across from a lawyer trying to figure out where the money went. Floyd's situation, if the allegations prove true, would join a long and painful list of athletes and entertainers who built enormous wealth only to watch significant portions of it vanish through bad deals, bad advisors, or bad contracts. It's a pattern that repeats itself with almost clockwork regularity. The bigger the name, sometimes the bigger the blind spot, because success at the highest level creates a kind of insulation. People stop telling you no. People stop questioning the fine print. And the ones who should be protecting your interests are sometimes the ones doing the most damage. That's the core of what Floyd is alleging against Showtime. Not that he made bad investments or spent recklessly. He's saying the people he was in business with actively worked against him. That's a different kind of betrayal. And if a court agrees with him, the consequences for how the sports broadcasting industry operates could ripple far beyond just this one case. But right now, the case is still in its early stages. Paramount has rejected the claims flatly. Floyd's team is pushing forward, and the legal process is going to take time, probably a lot of it, before anything gets resolved. In the meantime, the court of public opinion is already in session, and it is loud. 50 Cent has made sure of that. Rick Ross has added his voice to the noise. Fans are debating, blogs are running the story, and Floyd Mayweather, a man who spent his entire career controlling every single variable around him, is now watching a narrative unfold that he can't punch his way out of. That might be the most uncomfortable part of all this for a man like Floyd. Actually, before we close the book on this one completely, there's one more angle that doesn't get enough attention in conversations like this, and it's the one that matters most long-term. What happens to Floyd's legacy if this lawsuit doesn't go his way? Think about that for a second. Floyd Mayweather built his entire public identity around the concept of financial mastery, the money phones, the stacks on Instagram. The whole money nickname wasn't just branding, it was a worldview. He wanted you to believe that nobody on the planet was better at accumulating and protecting wealth than him. That was the character. That was the story he sold for 2 decades. And now that story has a very public crack in it, regardless of how the lawsuit ends. If Floyd wins in court and the $340 million claim holds up, that's actually a complicated kind of victory. Because winning means proving that you got taken. It means admitting that for years, while you were posting stacks and talking about being untouchable, somebody in a boardroom was allegedly running a scheme against you and you didn't catch it in time. You get the money back, potentially, but you also have to own the narrative that goes with it. And if he loses, if Paramount's legal team convinces a judge or jury that the claims lack merit, that's a completely different kind of damage. Because then the $340 million number just hangs there in the air permanently, attached to Floyd's name forever, with no resolution and no payout. Just the story. Either way, the money brand takes a hit. That's just the reality of going public with something this big. 50 Cent understood that before he even posted. That's why the response was so fast and so precise. He wasn't just making a joke, he was doing what he always does, which is recognize the moment where someone's armor has a gap and walk straight through it before they can close it back up. That's his actual superpower, if we're being real about it. Not the music, not the television deals, not even the business moves. It's the timing. It's knowing exactly when to apply pressure and exactly what angle hits the hardest. And on this particular situation, he read it perfectly. Which brings up one last question worth sitting with. Where does this beef actually go from here? Because Floyd hasn't responded publicly in any meaningful way yet. He's let his lawyers do the talking, which is probably the smart move legally. But Floyd Mayweather is not the type of person who lets something like this sit without eventually having something to say. He's too competitive, too prideful, and too aware of his own image to just absorb 50's posts without eventually firing back. When that response comes, and it will come, this story is going to get a whole second chapter. And knowing both of these guys, that chapter is going to be just as loud as this one. So, stay locked in. This situation is nowhere near finished. The legal battle could play out over years. The back and forth between these two is basically a permanent fixture at this point. And every new development is going to bring another round of posts, clowning, commentary, and chaos. That's the thing about real beef between two guys who genuinely can't stand each other and both have a massive platform. It doesn't have an off switch. Subscribe and keep it here. We'll be covering every move as it happens. Actually, hold on. Before we really close this out, there's something that just dropped that we can't skip over because it adds a whole new layer to everything we've been talking about. Word started circulating that Floyd's legal team isn't stopping at Showtime. Sources close to the situation are suggesting that the $340 million figure might only be the opening number, that the full scope of what Floyd believes he's owed could expand as discovery gets underway and more documents hit the table. In legal terms, discovery is where cases either fall apart or blow up into something even bigger. And if Floyd's attorneys are sitting on what they say they're sitting on, this thing could escalate in ways that make the current headlines look like a trailer. Think about what that means for Paramount, because right now, their public position is calm and dismissive. Baseless claims, no merit, see you in court. That's the standard corporate response. But if Floyd's team starts pulling financial records and the numbers start telling a story that doesn't match the network's version of events, that calm is going to get a lot harder to maintain. You've seen it happen before in high-profile cases. The public statement is confident right up until the moment the paperwork starts surfacing. And Floyd's attorney, Bobby Cimini, is not a guy who files a $340 million lawsuit without believing he has something to work with. You don't attach that number to your client's name publicly and walk into a California courtroom unless you're prepared for the scrutiny that comes with it. That would be career-defining for all the wrong reasons if it collapses immediately. So either there's real substance behind this, or Floyd and his team made a very expensive miscalculation. 50 Cent, predictably, has been monitoring all of this like a hawk. He hasn't posted again since that first Instagram hit, at least not at the time of this recording, but anyone who follows him knows that silence is just him loading up for the next shot. He's patient when it serves him. He lets the story develop, lets people start to forget he already weighed in, and then he comes back with something that resets the whole conversation. It's a cycle we've seen play out a dozen times. The thing that keeps this specific situation different from most celebrity beef is the actual legal stakes involved. This isn't two rappers arguing over who ran what city or who sold more records. There is a real courtroom, real attorneys, real financial documents, and a real judge who is eventually going to have to make sense of all of it. The entertainment value of 50's trolling is undeniable, but underneath all the jokes is a case that could genuinely reshape how fighters and performers negotiate with major networks going forward. Because if Floyd wins, if that $340 million claim gets validated by a court, every athlete and entertainer with a similar deal structure is going to be looking at their contracts with brand new eyes. Lawyers across the industry are going to be getting phone calls. That kind of precedent doesn't stay contained to one case. And if Paramount wins, well, then the message sent is equally loud, that even when you're the biggest name in the sport, even when you're generating the kind of revenue Floyd generated, you still fight for every dollar through the proper channels, or you don't fight for it at all. Either outcome is significant. Either outcome changes something. But right now, we're still in the early rounds. And if boxing has taught us anything, it's that the early rounds don't always tell you who's winning the fight. Sometimes the whole thing flips in the later stages when stamina and strategy start to matter more than first impressions. Floyd knows that better than anyone. The question is whether it translates from the ring to the courtroom. We'll find out. Stay tuned. So here's where everything stands. Floyd Mayweather is in a legal war with one of the biggest media companies in the world. 50 Cent is on the internet, making sure nobody forgets about it. Rick Ross has thrown his voice into the chaos, and the rest of us are just watching it all unfold in real time, wondering how a story this big is going to end. What makes this so compelling isn't just the money, although $340 million is impossible to ignore. It's the personalities, it's the history. It's the fact that every single person involved in this situation has something to prove and absolutely no interest in backing down quietly. Hip-hop has always had a complicated relationship with wealth, power, and who really controls the bag. This story puts all of that front and center in a way that's hard to look away from. If you've got an opinion on this one, drop it in the comments below. Who do you think comes out on top when all of this is said and done? Floyd, 50, or neither of them? Hit that like button if you're following this story, and subscribe so you don't miss a single update as this thing develops. See you in the next one.
That's tough because support me and help me be the best man that I can be.
So the money's really gone.
Yeah, that's what you think. It's fight, get the money, spend the money, fight.
All that money.
And it's been 2 years.
So is it just his overhead is so high on a day-to-day, month-to-month? Like
I don't even want to talk about it. Like within lifestyle, that money is going, trust me. Now it's like, call him, he'll be at your local host in a nightclub because you need that action right now.
Money Mayweather has money problems. He owes the IRS, he owes car dealers, he's pawning jewelry. A guy who's made hundreds of millions of dollars in his career is somehow running out of money. And now he's suing everyone, claiming he's owed money.
On top of that, it's generally not how they think.
Right.
You know? I mean, look at Floyd. Like, Floyd spends money like it's a tap. Like, he's got a tap, just like unlimited amount of money. Money's just flowing. And even as much money as he's made in his career, which he's probably made as much, if not more money than any boxer ever. Like, there's all these lawsuits. Like, he hasn't been paying things, and he owes money on this and owes money on that. And it's like, and then he's got to come out of retirement.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
You know, I gave the sport a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. So, you know, I'm very, very thankful for the support from people from all around the world, people from all walks of life. And, you know, I like going out having fun.
Just Google Floyd's name and the IRS. All the news is out there. He owes jewelers money. There's back paid rent for real estate in New York. It's clear that he is now part of the no money team, which is very ironic. He owes people lots of money. The IRS just leaned on him again, Fat Joe style, leaned back on.
Only $13 million in return.
Boxing legend Floyd Mayweather could be in a world of trouble for allegedly writing a bad check for a $200,000 luxury Audemars Piguet watch.
And can I say this to the person that's in my DM and say, Rose, you better make better moves and end up like Mayweather. First and foremost, do you actually believe Floyd Mayweather is broke? Do you? Do you? Let me make this clear right now.
About 100 cars. But right here, we like to call this the Sweet 16. Lambo. Ferrari. Lambo. Maybach, a Maybach. Whatever you want to call it. If I go on vacation, my fault. When I go on vacation for 30 days, I take 30 watches with me. But you know what? What's crazy is this. If we add 10 more days, I take 10 more watches. But then I say, if I want to bring out the one and only, then I bring out the watch that costs 18 million. Matter of fact, you know what I'm gonna do for you motherfuckers today? I'm gonna go for $50,000 because I ain't got to do. Money made. All money.
I know for a fact Floyd Mayweather not broke because Ricky Rose would give and put 50 million up to Floyd Mayweather, 50 million up to Javante Davis, aka Tank, and I will book the Hard Rock Stadium myself. If Mayweather needed that 50, we can make that happen today.
I would be interested in talking to. Massive publications. I remember them saying the highest paid sports guy in the world. And a number of years it was Floyd. Floyd would win this at $250 million and at $170 million. And then there'd be someone from like Formula One racing that some years would top Floyd, and then Floyd would be number 2. And I would just tell people, that's not real.